Not 2 minutes later, the skunky scent of marijuana wafts through the air above us. Neither Warren nor I bat an eye. My father's frequent pot smoking isn't exactly public knowledge, but it's certainly no secret around here. He says it's mostly to combat the stress that comes with owning a successful restaurant, but he also swears that he's created some of his most iconic dishes while stoned. He probably knows that I've smoked, but we don't talk about it, and we've certainly never done so together. Dad is what I call a professional stoner. He's been smoking for so long that it's hard to tell when he's high. The whites of his eyes turn just slightly pink, and sometimes he takes a little longer between thoughts. But other than that, he's completely functional, almost disturbingly so. I've seen him carry on extremely involved conversations when I know he's blazed up pretty recently. I down a glass of orange juice while Warren tends to the waffles, creating a generous stack on a plate next to the chicken. Dad comes back in just as they're ready, and we all help transport everything to the table. I carry plates and silverware and quickly set the table as they place the food. Eating with my father and Warren isn't like sharing a meal with anyone else I've ever known. Usually people taste a few bites of their food, declare how good it is or what it's lacking, then move on to more stimulating conversation. Warren and my dad analyze each bite, discussing which spices were or were not used and what they've changed since the last time they made the meal. Sometimes Dad gives him tips on his method, but I realized how much he respects Warren when he started asking for his opinion. I grew up in the restaurant industry, but I don't understand food the way they do, except for sweets. Baking makes sense to me, maybe because there's science behind it. There's so much trial and error with cooking. I get frustrated when a recipe doesn't turn out right the first time, even when I follow it to the letter. I was thinking about going to check out the new spot in Venice, Dad says to Warren. The one Courtney Winters just opened up. Oh, that place is supposed to be the real deal. Warren wipes his mouth and takes a long drink of water. You're going today? She has a Sunday supper. What do you think? Yeah, sure. Warren pauses and looks at my dad first, then me. You want to come? I pour more syrup over my waffle and take a bite. Even I can't help but stop and think how perfectly light and fluffy it is as I chew. I don't know, I say, looking at my father. Am I invited? Of course you are, Yvonne. I thought you'd be practicing, Dad says with a shrug. I do usually practice my violin on Sunday. It feels like a good end to the weekend. A structured start to the week. But I need a break from the routine sometimes. And now that I'm no longer taking private lessons, I can make my own practice schedule. Can we stop at the boardwalk? Yeah, sure. Dad waves one hand in the air as he drags a forkful of chicken and waffles through a pool of syrup with the other. He's already done with this conversation, ready to get back to food talk. The meal with them tonight will be almost exactly like the scene at this kitchen table. Only they'll sample an unreasonable amount of food, and my father will go back to the kitchen to talk to the chef, and I'll have to hear everything from why he thinks the dining room sconces are incompatible with the space to him breaking down the components of a sauce. It's exhausting, but I know the meal will be good. My father won't try just anyone's food, and I'll get to spend time with Warren, which always makes me happy. He works such long hours that we don't get to see each other as often as I'd like. Besides, I don't have anything else to do today. My Sundays used to be filled with violin practice, but with Denis no longer around to crack the whip, I don't see much of a point. It's hard not to give up on yourself when the person who's supposed to believe in you the most already has. 2. My geology teacher, Mr. Gamble, used to live in Venice Beach before we were born, and he says none of us would have survived it back then. He says the streets were full of gangs and crumbling bungalows and people addicted to crack. Gentrification has changed a lot of that, but luckily, the boardwalk has remained as weird as ever. One area is devoted to shirtless meatheads who like to lift weights in front of tourists, the aptly named Muscle Beach. Then there's the section where the skaters take turns braving the terrifying maze of concrete ramps on their boards. But my favorite part is walking down...